You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us today. And if you've ever heard us or watched us, you'll notice it's a totally different setup. So after we got over the heartache of having to set all this up, we're here. And thanks to Johanna Schuessler, who invited us in to record from here today at Adventure Unknown. So co-owner, co-creator of this club. Also, because that's not it, you're a physician's assistant, travel agent, wife, mom of three, and I'm sure as moms are, so many other different things inside of there. So Thank you for joining us today and being willing to open up and share your story.
Well, thanks for having me. And thanks for being here.
Yeah, both of them, all good. So when we think about, I think first, let's talk about the club, where we're at. Adventure Unknown, pretty fun and enticing name. What is the club? What goes on here? What's the purpose? How did the idea come about?
Absolutely. So this place is kind of a twofold building and concept. One is that it's a co-working space, but we wanted it to be elevated, seemingly luxury. And then on the other side, we want it to be a social club. So people come in here for different purposes, using it, whether it's for work or for them to come to our social events, hang out, entertain, that type of thing.
And with that, which I love, I think I don't know if this is intentionally the unknown part, the adventure part, but there's a big travel component to this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how did that, because there's a lot of clubs out there and a lot of different clubs inside clubs, but how did the travel component come up? And was that linked with the whole concept for this club?
It absolutely was. It's a big part of the concept. We actually see it, if you look at the physical location, we think of this like a country club, without the golf course. And instead of the golf course, we've replaced it with travel. So, but the premise behind why travel is so important to the club is that it's really trying to put like-minded people together on a trip, somewhere they've never been, to kind of really force them to immerse themselves in something new, but also meet people that really might change, the trajectory of their life.
And part of the story is you and Scott having met someone talking about going on another trip together, and it just happened to be, hey, let's go to Africa, which are on a lot of bucket lists, but way into the future, if maybe somehow I need somebody else to plan it. That was, tell me about that story, about how that really ignited the flame for here.
Absolutely. So for years, I started buying Scott gifts for Christmas that were hunting trips, because what else do you buy someone who seemingly has everything? You're not sure what to get them.
He's got you and 3 girls. He has everything, right?
So I sent him on a hunting trip in Alaska, and while he was there, he happened to meet another gentleman named Robert, and they were on Kodiak Island, so there's not a whole lot to do. So before they headed out to camp, they would meet at night for dinner and got to know one another better. And at the end of the trip, Robert said, we should definitely see each other again, go hunting, that type of thing. And Scott said, people always say that, but they really never reconnect. So a couple months pass, Robert reaches out to Scott and invited us on a trip to Africa. And I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting at work, and I said, yeah, let's go. And that's what we did. We just took a leap of faith and went on this trip with people we didn't know other than Robert. I didn't even know Robert at that point. But we went to Africa, had the most exceptional experience of our lives. And I was standing in our lodge room, and I looked at Scott and I said, this is absolutely changing our life, like for the future, because what I see is people taking a leap of faith, going on a trip to somewhere they never knew that they wanted to go, and having this transformational experience, really. So that was really the impetus behind Adventure Unknown. Yeah.
Was there something specific or something you can recall about Africa that just it hit you?
Yeah. I mean, it's just stunning location. You just take it in and you think, where are we? It's just absolutely beautiful. Sunsets can't be beat. And it's the people. The people are just the kindest, most friendly people. So I just think that right there helps set the perfect stage for us to be there with other people that we didn't know and help us really kind of be able to relax and cultivate those relationships.
And you have a full-time job. I mean, you're a physician's assistant. I know your husband, at some point prior to this, right? Chiropractic, had several different practices and offices. I mean, you were both busy.
Yeah.
So what was that like to decide we're going to go on this adventure and start this new club?
I have no idea why or how Scott and I are different than a lot of people in that we love to travel and find it easy to say yes to travel. It seems like it's really hard for a lot of people to say, I can't because of X, Y, or Z, work, kids, whatever. But I don't know, for some reason, Scott and I, we just feel compelled to travel the world. So we're starting to try to take our kids on more of these bigger trips because we want them to kind of feel that same passion for the world. Because it's not just about the United States, it's about connecting with other cultures, really, letting that transform your life too.
Yeah, because there's been, from what I've heard, and I know several people who are members, like different trips, catamaran trips back to Africa. What are some of the trips that have been explored through here since, or so far, this has been open?
Yeah. Well, last year we took some of our members to Italy. So again, that's just a really unique and beautiful location. And I think what we try to do when we set these trips apart from other, all-inclusive vacations, or Disney trips that others might take. And I'm not saying they're bad or discounting them whatsoever, but what is different about our trips is that we really try to do something that's ultra curated, super custom. I'm in the nitty-gritty, rabbit holes, connecting with locals, doing things that are off the grid, trying to make sure that we are definitely connecting in a different way than stereotypical travel. So in Italy, for instance, I worked directly with local Italians. We were in very immersive experiences meeting the locals. When we went to some wineries, the wineries were shut down and we had private experiences. We actually went to a sheep farm where we met with the farmer and we literally started in the barn and we went through the entire process of watching the milk being turned into the different cheeses, soft to hard. We then went to a dining room where there was the variety of cheeses along with appropriately paired wines. And we went through that whole experience. It's just different. They're very special experiences.
Well, it sounds like it's special because they have somebody like you who, and we'll get to your path and your story, but found a love for planning travel. Mm-hmm. I love to travel. Mm-hmm. You don't love to plan it.
Yeah, yes.
So you must be that secret sauce on top to really help make it happen for everybody who wants to enjoy that piece of the club.
It's that type A personality.
Type A personality in the right slot. Because I have one. It's just probably more with numbers, not so much with travel. And I think something you said earlier is why so many people are hesitant to travel is the planning, the wanting to do something unique, but not having the time to do it. So they default potentially. And again, been to Disney World several times. Universal Studios, have 3 kids. Of course, we have a default to those kinds of trips, which are still, again, memory makers. But is there a way to layer in just that different, awe-inspiring trip with that vulnerability of, so many relationships you say, oh, I have a great friend, but would I travel with them?
Right, exactly.
That's a big hurdle to jump over.
Exactly. And one thing we're trying to do here at the clubhouse is have monthly travel events. So bringing in representatives or other, we have an olive oil gentleman here locally who brings in olive oil from Italy. We come in, let's talk about our travel to Italy. Let's go over what the possibilities are for trips there. Just really having more open conversations, but also experiences here in the clubhouse to talk about travel. Our gentleman that we use as locals in Italy actually flew here last fall, and they did the whole virtual reality headsets to showcase some of their experiences. So again, trying to show people here locally what they could do in Italy, without leaving St. Louis.
So I have to imagine, especially with the club idea being so new, and when you're a young girl, you probably didn't know Scott. So this idea, I'm imagining, couldn't have been there. But looking back, thinking about how you got here and your experiences along the way, and, how could you, that's pretty adventurous to say, let's start a new club and we're taking care of 3 kids, 3 youngish kids and building this thing. I mean, back when you were young, does it make sense? Does it fit your personality?
I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, and we never got to take vacations. So going to the local swimming pool on Sunday was a vacation, So, vacations were few and far between in my childhood.
So growing up on that farm, my dad was on a farm. I can only imagine, a lot of work to do. Potentially not a lot of free time, depending on the season. So what was that like, or how did that contribute to who Johanna is today?
Yeah, I think it's because I'm hardworking for sure, 100%. That's what my farming background brought me. But people tell me that all the time. I never sit still. I'm always working, and I think it's just that farm ethic. You got to milk the cows. Not going to milk themselves. You got to go out and bale the hay. It's not going to get in the barn unless you do it, So just that hardworking.
What was that like? Did you have siblings? How paint a picture of little Johanna, maybe in pigtails, we don't know, on the farm in Wisconsin.
That's right. So I was born in Dubuque, Iowa. And then in 4th grade, my parents bought a farm across the Mississippi River in Potosi, Wisconsin. So I grew up at that point on a 330-acre dairy and hog farm. 2 brothers, an older brother, Joey, who is now a pathologist assistant, and my younger brother, Johnny, who is a veterinarian outside of Madison. So interestingly, growing up on a farm, 3 of us end up in medicine somehow, way, shape, or form. But that point, then I met Scott in college. We both were science majors, and I found him extremely annoying my freshman year. He was a volleyball player and just thought a lot of himself, or so I thought. He thought a lot of himself. But we just had classes together through those 4 years, and ultimately started dating, though, the 2nd semester of our senior year. So we really kind of delayed any interest in one another till then.
So is he from here? How do you end up in St. Louis?
So he was a physical therapy major, but also played college level volleyball. So in order to get both of those things, there was a few schools that he could select from. So he ended up in Dubuque, Iowa at Clark College.
So that's where you met there and came back this way, or he came back. You came along.
I did, yeah. So, I completed Clark College with my undergraduate in biology, and then I went on immediately from there into the physician assistant program at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. He followed me and moved to Mauston, Wisconsin, started his practice, or career, I should say, not his practice, but his career, until I finished PA school, and then we moved down here.
Yeah, I mean, being a PA is so in demand, and if anything, so many more of us are just, that's who we see directly and not the doctors. I mean, that's a pretty critical role and very, there's a lot riding on what you do every day.
Yeah, I've been doing it for over 20 years now, and I hear it from a lot of patients most every day, how grateful they are, for them to be able to see me for my continued, I've been at my current practice for probably 11, 12 years now. And so it's just that consistency that they get to see the same face over and over again. With all the turnover that there is these days, patients are very grateful for someone being steadfast and loyal.
And I would especially imagine in internal medicine where, that's just a hard, I'll just say it. My husband and I have dealt with like 3 or 4 new doctors within the last 2 or so years.
Yeah.
So when you mention turnover, especially in that area of the health, I could be wrong. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I would think that's really critical in the line that you're in medicine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things, my passion for patient care is that I love to get to know people. And that's something that is actually proven statistically month to month on a patient, satisfaction score. And 1 month last year, my manager at the time said, "Can you do a video or a talk for our office about how you consistently get this impeccable patient satisfaction score?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I need to do a video or anything like that." I said, "It's pretty simple. You just talk to the patient and genuinely express interest in their lives." And I think that means a lot to them, because I feel like the social, aspect of someone's life actually does really impact their overall health. And so I think there's a lot of questions there that are important in how you're treating that patient.
Well, I think it's interesting you say that, because I do think in this day and age, we've lost, or maybe we never had, that art of real deep communication, getting beyond a first few questions. And whether it sounds like you're a physician's assistant, what I do as a wealth manager versus, CPAs versus, of course, it's all people I know, but anybody in business, relationships are so important. Mm-hmm. And I probably wouldn't think of it as you had just explained inside of medicine. Mm-hmm. But so you kind of shrugged it off, but how do you do it? You talked about, how are you different?
Yeah.
If I were to come in and talk to you, mm-hmm. what would be so different?
I think the one different thing is going to be, I'm going to ask you, what do you do for a living? Are you married? Do you have children? And from there, it just kind of opens up who you are. And I feel like it's storytelling, exactly like what you're doing on this podcast. You start to gain more and more information from that person, and it just builds a picture. And you actually learn a lot in terms of, okay, if we're treating anything, that's going to make a decision or an impact on how I'm going to treat you. So.
Right. Not just the symptom or whatever they're presenting to you at the time.
Yeah.
What I'm sure lots of people will be listening and saying, "Oh, fascinating."
Yeah.
Into everything else beyond just the moment in hand. But I'm sure that's difficult in the, high, fast-paced mm-hmm. world that you're in.
Yeah.
And that is probably, see patient. But if there were just a few more minutes to take, mm-hmm. you could keep them healthier mm-hmm. Longer.
Yeah. And I think we are getting to this point in medicine, which is actually sad, where patients are numbers. Not something I'm very excited about. It actually gets me very frustrated when we have our monthly meetings talking about numbers and things like that. At the end of the day, when they say, "Hey, Johanna, you're not earning your bonus this year because you didn't hit X RVU numbers," I don't actually care if I do or don't. It's not going to change how I practice medicine. A patient is not a number to me. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of a year or two ago, we were going to see one of my doctors, and they had asked me a question. I was like, well, sure, I guess we could talk about that. I mean, I'd be interested in learning more. And then you get the bill from the hospital however many months later, and it's like, it was just a regular well visit, mm-hmm. and there's a charge on there. And I eventually, after call, find out it's because I asked a question. Mm. And I thought, well, I didn't even really ask that question. So
yeah.
From your standpoint, I mean, something we find in some of these podcasts is people talk about how do you advocate for yourself, especially in medicine. Mm-hmm. What advice would you have for people who are going to see their mm-hmm. physician's assistant, their doctors? What are some things that they could do to have a better experience or make sure they get across mm-hmm. the vital information for you to do your job within a number system?
Yeah. No, and I actually hear this a lot, even from patients, or they'll tell me experiences they've had in a hospital, for instance, or at an urgent care. And a lot of people do not know how to advocate for themselves, and they will just do whatever they were told that they should do versus knowing if that was actually the right path or course of action. So I'm pretty frank and honest with them and tell them, if this has happened to you or if this is your experience, you really need to either call and report this, because there's some serious consequences that can happen.
Right.
But the minor things in terms of how they could better advocate for themselves, I think people just need to just do their own research at this point. I know people say don't Google and all those things. I'm not telling people to go Google, but it's also, do you want to go in and just be handed a prescription and be told, take this, and really not know why or what it's for? That's something that actually scares me. So
definitely, with as much side effects and as much medicine as there is out there today, having a little bit more involvement in your own care. And I think that was just us growing up, right? The doctors are so smart, and they are. You take everything for what you're being told.
Yeah.
But in the end, you know what your body's saying.
Yeah.
You know what it feels like, and make sure you're just not being, it'll take care of itself, or you'll get over it. You won't feel that take this medicine. You won't feel that in a couple days, weeks. So it seems like if I were to sit here and just look at you, and of course I have things here, so I know your story.
Yeah.
But wow, they started this club, and it seems so successful, and she's a physician's assistant, and she does all this travel stuff, and she met her husband in college, and wow, they moved together. Everything just seems like it was handed on the silver platter. We talked a little bit about the farm and working hard, but there were some challenges you had, I think, along the way that I'm going to imagine has helped shape you to who you are, and to get into this level of success where you guys are at.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me, because I've definitely not had a life with a silver platter put in front of me. I actually many days struggle with the loss of my mom. Being an only daughter, she passed when I was in my 20s, and Scott and I had been married less than 2 months, and unfortunately she died in a motorcycle accident with her fiance in Florida, and I was actually on call when it happened. I guess I can kind of tell the story in this way. I was actually on call, and I was outside that day working out in our yard, and that was back in the day of pagers, on your belt on the side. Yep. So I was outside, and when I came in, I didn't even have my cell phone on me because it was, again, old school cell phones. I had missed a call from my mom. She had left a voicemail saying that they had gotten to Florida, and that was the last, time I ever heard her voice, because later that evening, I was on a call with a patient, and my dad was calling, but I was on the other call. So my husband took the phone call, and he told Scott, he said, "You're going to have to sit Johanna down," and he told him the news he was going to have to share. And so I got off that call, and my dad told me that she had died. And I think I just felt like my world completely collapsed. And I knew I was never going to be the same ever again. And I looked at Scott and I said, "I don't even know that you should stay married to me, because I am going to be forever different." So
wow. And that was 2 months, 2 weeks after you guys got married, right?
Less than 2 months. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then within the following year, my husband's brother, who had Apert syndrome, he had developed epilepsy when he was in high school, and ended up passing away, though, at 33 from having a seizure in his sleep overnight. So within a year's time, we were just through the ringer in our marriage. And I will say the one good thing out of all of that I can say is I have the best relationship with my in-laws, because that brought us so close together, and just that complete suffering, anguish. So we have an extremely good relationship.
Not everybody would get through that. Not only one of those incidents, but two.
Yeah.
What do you think it was that helped you to get through that and stay together and build this life?
We've definitely had our ups and downs, and the beginning of our marriage was a lot of downs because it was just tough. It was very tough. I had lost my world. And I think my mother-in-law, truly, we would go to her at times, and I remember specifically one time sitting in their living room, both of us just being honest, like, we don't know if we can do this. It was hard. But God loved their support, And that's probably two of our travel, and why we can travel is because we told them, like, this is extremely important for us to have time as a married couple, and they've been supportive of that. So I'm so grateful for my in-laws.
So do they help watch the girls when the girls were younger? I know they're a little bit older now,
but they did, yeah.
So that allowed you guys to be able to go out and build deeper bonds that way.
Yes, and they still actually do when we do travel, even though we have a senior in high school. They like Grandma and Grandpa to come over.
That's great. And since they're in town in St. Louis, that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's having a mom myself, being a mom, I'm sure, well, maybe that's a good question. Did that change you at all as you became a mom?
Oh, when I had our first daughter, I thought, I can't believe this. Like, I just felt like what a gift to get a daughter. And then we went on to have 2 more. And so 3 daughters in total. And I still look at that as a gift every day. I swear that is truly sent from my mom. Like, she was like, you need to have all girls. I cherish my relationships with each of my girls so much. I really do.
So with all of those losses, and I think you'd even mentioned here, a gift from God, if you could, sometimes we have these conversations, if you could go back and change things, would you?
Mm-hmm. If I could have my mom back, hell yeah.
Yeah. That almost seems like, I think that would have to be a softball, because as much as maybe it helped you grow and overcome and be resilient, and tell me if I'm wrong there, or add what you think it really gave you, there's I
mean, did it make me resilient? Yes. Has it brought so much empathy that I can have and connect with so many of my patients who experience loss? That's actually one of the things that I feel is what I was supposed to learn from losing my mom, and utilize that in my everyday life. I can't tell you how many times I've connected with people on that specifically. And I actually almost find myself my most comfortable when I'm with someone who's lost something or someone. It's just like I can totally get to that level of pain, and I feel comfortable there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You feel most comfortable with others that are in that situation.
Yeah.
Curious.
I know,
and you may not know why.
And I don't know why. And I even, as you get older, we reflect as women and who we're becoming and evolving into. And I many times these days say, I'm lacking, there's this joy and enthusiasm. I sometimes feel more reserved. And people would even say that just by looking at me, that I probably have this more reserved look to me. It's just, I don't know that I can ever experience full joy because of losing my mom, So I think that holds me back a little bit.
What do you do to try to capture that as much, or is it something that just happens and you're not aware? Because I think a lot of people, that's what we talk about in society now, not with what you experience by any means, but how do you create joy and be happy in life, and how do you fill those holes?
I think it's just when I connect with people, day to day, being here at the clubhouse, my day to day with patients at work. I do enjoy connecting with people. I'm a listener. I love listening to people. I like problem solving, whether that's travel or, physical ailments. So I think that's where I find my joy, is that fulfills my heart by helping others.
Was that, when you look back again, I'm on my own learning journey, and I find that, a lot of this was there when I was 5, 8, 9. I mean, looking back, was that helping people, building those connections by listening? Was that always you?
I think I was helping animals when I was little. So, yeah.
I imagine sometimes it might be easier to listen to the animals than to listen to people, maybe.
Right. But, when I was in high school and college, I worked as a CNA in the nursing homes, and I just loved working with the older folks. I always loved listening to their stories.
Any particular stories or times where it just, whether it's there or different, where you're like, I just made a difference, or I really connected with somebody, or maybe it's reverse, by being there to help somebody, they had a huge impact on you?
I just grew up knowing I liked science. I liked that part of it all. And I felt like I was smart there, in high school. And so I knew I wanted to pursue that, but I never knew where I wanted to go with it. And I remember I would go to the career center, and I would go on the computer and type in, what can you do with a science major? And it would populate all these careers. That's what the Career Center was for. And one that popped up was physician assistant. And I thought, I didn't even know what that is. So I went and I shadowed a PA. And I was like, this is exactly what I want to do, because I knew I didn't want to become a physician. And the reason is because I was hopeful I would meet a man, I would have children, and I wouldn't want to feel like I had to work full time as a physician for the rest of my life. And so this was kind of that perfect niche for me. So
I'm not a science person. I love math, not a science person. I mean, what was it about science? Like, how do you, I find that intriguing, since my brain doesn't work that way, where you're like, I knew I loved science.
Yeah.
How?
But sometimes, I look back at high school and how much I loved my science classes, but I think it actually goes back to the teachers. And the teachers that taught were just impeccable. They were so good at teaching that I think I just fell in love with it because they were so good at explaining it. You know, you talk to some people who are like, I don't understand organic chemistry, but if you have the right teacher, it makes all the difference in the world.
Wow. Well, I was going to go back to something else you said about business leadership, but really what you just said there has a huge impact on, you know, whether it's a coach, a teacher, a leader, a boss, like having that integral person who you can connect with in your life in one form or fashion, a mentor. And maybe that even leads in. I mean, that's such good business advice too, to search and find. And if you don't have that person who's lighting you up that way, then you might need to leave that team or you might need to leave that company to search for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. When your passion burns out, you should walk away.
Yeah. Well, you did that by, you know, you read about, I mean, it sounds so simple, but really it isn't. You're like, I need to do some research on my own and figure out, you took ownership. Where am I going to take this? And you reached out to a physician's assistant to say, can I shadow you? Can I come in? I mean, that takes some, I don't know, some accountability, some effort to do that.
And it's we have a senior in high school right now, and we have been walking these steps with her saying, you know, what are you thinking for your future and that? And she's explored so many different professions, trying to figure that out in life as well, which, you know, I think that's what kids should do. You shouldn't just think, I think I want to be this and go that path and then find yourself disappointed, you know.
Well, and here you are. We haven't even talked about the traveling. We talked that you plan the travel, but did that really come about because of I think it was when I look at the notes, it came about from a couple of things. One, that trip, but also when COVID hit, your life was shaken up a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. It was in May. The rumblings were there at Mercy that there was going to be furloughs, and no one really knew what level that meant. You know, was that leadership? Was that providers, staffing? And one day I walked into work and I had seen my first patient, and I came out of the exam room and they were standing there and said, could we speak with you in an office? And they said, we appreciate all your service, but now we're going to let you go. As of today, your insurance is null and void. Thank you.
So I just imagine you're in this room, right? And we've all been in those rooms where there's like maybe a little sink, there's the thing that they can sit on and a couple chairs and a computer. When they are there, is it somebody you know? Is it somebody in a suit? Like, what does this look like?
Yeah, it's someone in a suit. It's it's corporate. And,
seemed out of place.
Yeah.
Right. So you knew probably right.
Oh, I knew immediately. Like, I knew
something's off. Did you know that? I mean,
I just knew. I was like, I'm being let go.
Which, when we think back, I mean, I remember, 4 years ago, almost, really, we're in the midst of that. I guess it really is 4 years ago. COVID 2020, and nobody knew what was going on. You couldn't go to grocery stores, or one at a time. You couldn't go outside. I mean, it's shocking to me that somebody in the medical profession was furloughed, laid off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, rumor says that it was, to cut back costs. So kind of take off the cream of the top and, make some savings there. So
and your insurance was gone. And we were talking ahead of time, like, we both have kids and family. So medical insurance for anyone is important.
Right.
But yet, especially if you're bearing that coverage burden through your career.
Trust
me.
I bet
that's scary.
And during COVID. And so I was looking at my kids every day, like, don't jump, don't run, don't,
Bubble wrap.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So it was quite the pivotal time. And so I just said to myself, what am I going to do? What's next? Because other entities in St. Louis were making cutbacks as well. So I really didn't know where my future was in medicine, although I thought that was extremely peculiar in a pandemic. But that was the situation we were in, which is why I said I've always wanted to be a travel agent. And I reached out to my franchise owner. We had traveled a lot through her. She had done all of our travel planning. I said, what do you think about me becoming an agent? And she said, I've always thought you should become one. And so I did the testing, and that's really where it came from. I know it sounds silly, though, in a pandemic to become a travel agent, but I knew travel was going to come back, so that's where that all started.
So you could have, because being a physician's assistant takes a lot of schooling and education, a lot of time, and you're very important. So you could have just said, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to wait. Something will probably open up at some point, and I hope this all works out. But instead, you said, what else do I like to do? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how did that come about? Like, what else do I want to do? I'm not just going to sit back and do nothing. I'm used to having to take care of the animals on the farm.
Yeah. Well, my hope at the time was that I would be called back, and that is what happened.
How long did that take?
It was probably like 8 to 10 weeks. It wasn't that long.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. I know. But, we didn't really know. Every week to week, you were just sitting there waiting to see if you got called back or not. So
then at that point, you're taking your test, you're a travel agent. Now you're balancing the two jobs.
So, people said, you're crazy. And it's so hard for me to give up one. So I just won't.
It sounds like you're having fun with it.
I am.
So with everything else going on. But back to what you said about your daughter and that, what we've heard along, many different podcasts and stories that we've recorded is one's path is not always linear. You wanted biology, you found the physician's assistant, but found this joy and passion and love in doing travel, planning it for people. 20 years ago, I'm sure you're probably not thinking you're doing that.
Right. Exactly. And even here, I at the clubhouse, I feel like week by week, everything is always changing. And that's because we have entrepreneurs coming in here, business-minded people. And, when you start talking to people who are smart and you watch that ripple effect of, oh, this is an idea, and everyone starts to come up with new ideas, and you sit around a round table like we do in these conference rooms. We had a wellness roundtable last week with people who do different things in the health and wellness arena, and it just makes your brain tick and go haywire in a good way. So that's what also keeps me super passionate and energized week by week, because I really never know what's going to happen here.
So it sounds like a lot of people and ideas coming together, and then with those different expertise and brainstorming, it kind of ignites things
exactly
that into places you didn't know it was going to go.
Yep. It's always about learning something new too, so not knowing this, you didn't even know this existed, and here it is in local St. Louis, that's what I find so fun every week here.
Well, it's been around. When did you guys open this?
July of last year.
So not even a whole year.
Not even a whole year. Yeah. It's been mind blowing. And, I think it's taking some time to really get the name around the St. Louis area, but we can tell it's happening. So that's pretty fun.
Well, and you're trying to do, and you are doing different things, whether it's the health and wellness. I know we met because we did an event a while back, sometime last year, for women, trying to bring women in too, because some of those stories maybe sound like a hunting is just for men kind of club, but it's really trying to make it all inclusive for fun, travel, learning, ideas, growth, connections.
Exactly. And especially the women. I know we talked about this at one point, but I'm very, very, very passionate. Even Scott is about having women in this clubhouse. There's a need, a want for women in business. We're raising 3 young women. So that's exactly what, we want our world to be for them, is that they feel empowered. So that's really the hope here, is to bring in more female women in business.
Well, and back to what you said about building that kind of round table and bringing people from different backgrounds in, and better ideas come. That's really bringing together, the whole diversity and inclusion, and everything's, maybe some buzzwords, but the goal of that is the more different voices and ideas, the better that hopefully comes out from that.
Absolutely.
What's the craziest idea that's come out of, if you can share that?
Oh boy, the craziest idea. I'm gonna have to think about this. Crazy in what way?
Well, maybe we get crazy fun and maybe crazy surprise, like, wow, that's a really great idea, if it can be shared, because maybe people are still working on it.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything wild and crazy I can think of yet, because a lot of it is just so focused on business. I think on the social side, a fun, silly story is one of our members held, it's called Trailer Park Trash Night. And it's basically a Clue whodunit kind of game, but you dress up and play characters that are from the trailer park. And they had a heyday playing that here one night. So that was something led by a club member, and everyone just said it was a total blast.
Oh, that's funny. You bring people together and we talked about, you wrote here, being vulnerable and raw, and you never know what kind of funness, that's not really a word, but I'm going to say it, funness can come out of it.
I will just chime in, though. We were talking about the whole women thing, and you said vulnerable and raw. And I think that's one of the opportunities or places where I am at in my life. And you might agree with me, as we get older, you start to realize that, you can fake it till you make it kind of thing. But then there reaches a point where you really want to have some vulnerable and real conversations with your female friends and coworkers, and it's so easy day in and day out to just say, how are you? I'm good. I'm fine. But truly, how do you get people to start stripping that back and say, I'm actually not. My marriage is tough right now. I'm having this issue with one of my children. I don't know if I'm where I'm at or where I want to be at in life, that type of thing. It's so hard to get women to open up and truly be honest and share those things.
Why do you think that is? I don't know that I have the answer, but
I mean, Scott, my husband, always calls Facebook fake book. I think it's that same concept of, I think we are just trying to put on, this picturesque life that we're all living instead of just really being our authentic selves. I don't know why. I wish more people would kind of jump on the bandwagon of let's be authentic and real.
And I think I'm similar in where you're at, that trying to tear down the masks. It's so tiring.
Yeah.
To always have to be perfect or try to come across perfect, whatever that is. It's tiring and exhausting. And even today, as I was coming in, I thought I just, okay, Cynthia, you got to get up for this. You got to energy. And I just thought, man, all the things that I have going on, but again, what do I have to complain about? I think we just talk ourselves out of it. But I think when we're older, maybe some of it is, I'm just going to wear those bright pink polyester pants. I'm with my AARP card and I'm going to go to dinner at 4:00 and I'm just done playing the game. I'm going to be me.
Exactly.
Maybe that's some of it.
Right.
I don't know.
I know. Yeah. So that's where I'm trying to, kind of build my own posse group of women around me. It's really what I'm looking for. I've never been a big girl's girl. And again, I think that's because of losing my mom. I just have kept all my emotions inside. I really do. I just buried it under the rug, don't talk about it. I'm the listener, not the sharer type of thing. And as I'm getting older, and I'm actually just a couple years away from the age of when my mom died, and that's the point in life where I don't know what she was like older, right? So there's this finite end point. And I guess that really has me toiling a lot in my head and heart these days, so.
Do you think that's been a barrier for you in life, and or is that a barrier for women of, for however many decades we've both been on this planet, that throughout your life that has been something that you had to overcome?
I don't even think I realized that I have something to overcome until probably the last couple of years. I'm really recognizing that I have something to overcome. So.
And how do I sit here and I think, as a parent, all the stuff I'm learning in my late 40s, like, how do I share this with my kids earlier on as a mom so that they can, get through, get more success earlier on in their career?
Yeah.
And I don't know how to, you think about, people tell you build boundaries, be authentic. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. With my daughters, and that's part of the, maybe it's because not having my mom or having an outlet to really confide in someone. I'm very, very open with all three of my girls. We have even individually, I have a lot of one-on-one conversations with them. And those are authentic, real, raw. And sometimes it does come up when they really upset me. And for whatever reason, if it's the right place at the right time, to make them realize how lucky they are to have parents in their life, that there are people out there who don't have their parents in their life. So be grateful that we're here, And I know that they recognize the gravity of that when I say it. So I feel very close to my three daughters, and I'm extremely proud as a mom right now.
So that's some advice you've given to them. I think advice anybody could take, right? Be grateful, acknowledge what you have, and living in a place of abundance, not scarcity and negativity. Other advice or things that you've learned along the way that you would share with them, with other women, with people in general?
Yeah. I was thinking about that, and I think it still boils back to two things my mom always told me. She said, stay close to Jesus. She would sign every letter or card she ever wrote me, stay close to Jesus. And I agree with that. Like, if you veer off of that, things are usually not as good as they should be. And the other was that you should always be who you want to be. And again, I think that's so important, even this day and age, staying, true to yourself, be authentic, be real, be vulnerable, and be open,
I think that takes some discovery of figuring out, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Most often we plunge forward and say, all right, it's, high school, it's college, it's first job, and we often don't come back and say, wait a minute, who am I and what's important to me? I mean, you did with your biology in doing that, but I don't think most people, we don't understand the value of that pause, maybe that slow down. Let's pull off to the side of the road and really think about where we're going instead of just driving.
Yeah. I remember my mom always telling me too, like when I was in high school, pursuing my future in science. And she said, whatever you end up doing, make sure that you're capable of taking care of yourself. Don't plan that you're going to get married and that man is going to take care of you. Always be able to take care of yourself, which I think, again, good advice for someone, as you are navigating through college, like who am I, where am I, what am I doing? Just making sure that you're always following your compass. So.
Yeah. And I think that's probably great advice for anybody because, as you know, your life, anything can happen. So much unplanned, unexpected can happen and throw you off course. Yeah. And if you don't have the skills, the ability, the mindset, the heart set to take care of yourself, life could potentially be a lot more challenging.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think in building this club so far has been the biggest return or impact for people? And then I'm going to ask you a second question. Where do you guys see anything in the future that's going to be different and impactful?
Sure. I think the impact that we're actually just starting to now, I think we're getting big enough where we're seeing connections being made, people who didn't know other people, but I call it the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing. It's like people start to know, and then you watch that happen. And a couple of big things are happening right now with foundations here locally. So we're having a couple events where we're going to be supporting some big philanthropic organizations, all because so-and-so knows so-and-so knows so, and you're watching this all relationshiply develop. And I think that's powerful. That's something Scott and I are super passionate about, is philanthropic organizations, because when you have something, share it, spread the wealth kind of thing. So that's something I'm very excited about, where we're at right now, watching this ripple effect happen. So.
Is that where you see maybe the concentration in the near term is building out, like you said, all those different relationships, and how can you support even more people or organizations through what you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the goal here is to get to 100 club members. And we're just over 50 right now. So the hope is that as we continue to grow, you see those projects, those passion projects, become bigger and more successful.
And it's funny, I will say that I've experienced that firsthand. The last time we were here checking the space out, my husband and me, a bunch of people come in, and I was like, wait, what other life is he living? Because he knew like 5 out of the 6 people that walked in the door, had no clue. It was a random Friday morning, come here first thing, had no idea, we would be here and that all these people would be here. And so I agree with what you said from the club standpoint, but if you also layer that over into life and business and advice, it's, you never know when a relationship is going to come back into your life at some point. So if you, are open, honest, real, giving, as you had said, again, don't do it because you think tomorrow that person's going to be able to help you. But I'm sure I know it's St. Louis definitely is a big, small town. And I'm sure it's in other places that paths cross, and what kind of legacy and what name are you leaving that who knows when that's going to come back. It could either come back to help you,
Right.
could come back to bite you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the hope here is even that, we have people in other states that are hoping that we will actually expand and into other cities. And so that's kind of exciting to even think about something like that.
How did that come about?
How did it come up? Because people in other states said, hey, so for instance, we have family in Texas, and they were asking more and more. And I mean, she got so intrigued. She's like, I want to open one here in Dallas. I want one so bad. And it's funny because then she's been talking to friends down there. So they're literally like thinking about this. So the idea of it is fun, right? To think about that novelty of like, maybe that would happen. And maybe there's more in store for Adventure Unknown. We don't know. It's unknown.
I know, yeah. And I mean, that's a good name anyway, because so much of life is unknown and your path is unknown. And don't be afraid to jump off on the less traveled path and see where that takes you with courage and work ethic and support. You talked about Scott and your kids and the people you know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of that along the way, whether it was your in-laws, whether it's the people as part of the club supporting and pouring in, and so much more comes out in the end.
Yeah, that's one of Scott's mottos right now is, don't come in here as a club member wanting, like hoping for business, essentially. Rather come in with a giving mindset, and so much more will come your way because of that.
So we talked a lot about what goes on here. And if I'm listening, I may think, not sure if that's me. Who is it that signs up? Who is a good member? Who do you have here already?
Yeah. Many of our members are business owners themselves. Some actually work for an employer, but they work from home and they just get sick of working in their home and need an outlet. Some are retired and are just looking for something to be doing with their time now that they're retired, but actually still find themselves dabbling back in business meetings, and it's fun to watch that too. And then I would say, as far as if you're a right fit, I don't know how to say it other than you really kind of got to come to an event or two, or come to Adventure Unknown Connect, which is on Wednesday mornings. Everyone's allowed to come for one visit to check it out, but it's basically a round table, and you introduce yourself, your business, and you get to meet other people there. So that's a really good opportunity to come if you're business minded. For social interest, I would say come to one of our events, and that's a good opportunity to check us out. So that's what I would say about that. As far as signing up or becoming a club member, we have an application process. And the biggest one is that you just can't be an asshole. That's the one and only rule of the club. And beyond that, then you just get to look through the document and fill out the application.
That's good. But, personality and culture is so important. And, be upfront with it and just say, these are the people we want to attract. They're going to be different, but in the end, they're all, I would imagine, basically not the asshole. Yeah. So good, helpful, just genuine people. Yeah. That's who we want.
Yeah. And it circles back around to, people who want to give and not, get all the time. That's kind of the mentality that we're trying to bring in.
So business owners, people who work from home all the time and want a different place, people who might be retired or have some sort of expertise where they just want to keep that brain and that idea and that flow going, they can find this space to be somewhere where they can have those brainstorming idea sessions and just bounce that business brain energy and acumen off of each other.
Exactly. Yep. And on a separate note, we are going to start what's called Adventure Unknown Travel Club, which is going to be for those who are not club members, but want to be part of our travel network. And so that's something that we're queuing up right now. So
all right.
Stay
so
tuned.
Not only there's lots of stuff already, but stuff to pay attention when you've got the travel agent extraordinaire behind the whole thing, building these amazing trips that you won't experience normally.
Yeah. Yes. That's the goal.
Well, it sounds like that's what's really helped you be, successful along the way, is that service and that helping others, which is why you get all those good ratings as a physician's assistant. And again, more great business and life advice is, to put some boundaries up, and be smart, but put yourself out there and go into everything wanting to learn and help and be a part of something as a giver versus that taker.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great motto to have. So lots of success to date. Sounds like potentially expansion, more success in the future. Who knows? But lots of ways that you're out there, and Scott too, both the club do. So let's consider travel agent. Are you doing it primarily here? Are you doing it outside of here?
So if someone wants to book individual travel, right, stereotypical normal travel, I certainly do that as well. But I work from here on my days off. So
on your days off,
on my days off.
Hence, going back to all the success and the little girl on the farm, you got to work. And obviously, in the practice at Mercy Hospital, doing internal medicine, physician's assistant, making an impact and helping people there.
Yeah.
So maybe you have an in for those people who have their doctors keep churning over. Just come to the club, find your physician assistant.
That's right.
I mean, a lot of success and a lot of possibilities. And as you pointed out earlier, you're getting to the age where you don't know what your older mom would have been or would have done.
Yeah.
If she could see you now and you could talk to her or hear her, what do you think she'd say?
She would tell me she's so proud of me. Yeah, she'd be super proud of what I'm doing. Yeah. I don't know that she would probably cry, and she would just go on and on about how proud she is of me. Yeah.
You could go on that journey with her somewhere in a meadow.
Yeah.
And talk about it.
Exactly.
Catch up on everything.
Yeah. One day I hope that happens.
Right. Well, I think, so much was shared about just the club and your life in general, which is helpful. But also when you really think about the pieces in your journey, advice, overlays, so many different ways for people to be successful in life, people in general. But I think especially women too, open yourself up, be vulnerable, be raw, take a chance. You're going to build those deeper relationships when you are your true self, but you're also, as you do, ask a lot of questions, get to know them, get around the surface level stuff. So, I think people always come in and say, what story am I going to have to tell? And how is this going to make a difference? But if people just pay attention to all those little pieces in your life, I know somebody's going to relate to something that you went through and see your success and say, I can do it too.
Yeah. And it's interesting because even when we talked about me being on here for the podcast, I was like, do I have enough of a story? But really when you talk to most everybody, everyone has a story, And
I think we almost all feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, do I really have a story? Is there anything important or significant about what I did in my life?
Yeah.
And we often don't sit back and take the time to reflect on ourselves.
Right.
Unless somebody forces you
exactly.
to. And asks you all these questions that you're not leaving until you answer them and put all this stuff down on paper. So I think there's so many of us, again, if we just get raw and open, a lot of us are feeling the same way. And for us to truly connect and help others, it's about just sharing and being willing to tell that story with the potential that somebody might, connect to any piece of that. So if we think about, the club, you mentioned 50 people wanting to get to 100. How do people find out more?
Yeah.
Come join or visit or talk to somebody.
Yeah. Well, they can either go to our website, which is adventure-unknown.com. They can find us on Facebook, Adventure Unknown, Instagram, Adventure Unknown, but they have to have the adventure_unknown_, But that's how they can reach us. And on the website, it has our points of contact.
And I know having a few friends here, I've seen some of their pictures. So even if you just see the travel pictures, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Again, with the idea of if you're in business, you want a place to work, bring people together for ideas, but also community fun and building memories through amazing travel. then this might be the place to check out.
And I would say it's difficult for a lot of people just to like understand who and what we are. So really it's about coming here, I think, 1 or 2 times to kind of get the essence of what this club is really all about. It's hard to say it just in a conversation, so really coming to experience it says a whole lot more.
And maybe reaching out to you guys and saying, what would be some good times to come?
Absolutely.
And try to attend at different times and see what's happening.
Yep. Everyone's welcome.
Well, thank you for, having trust in us to bring your story and to use your place. This is fantastic. I would say a little nervous ahead of time, probably less so than my husband. He has to set it all up. So it's amazing. It's a great location. There's so much space back there that nobody can see. And it worked out so well. So thank you for letting us come in and also for being so willing to be open and share your story, because I'm sure something in there will help somebody along the way.
I hope so, and it was an honor.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit sheliftproject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.